Hello humans, it is me, Human, and I am super excited about today's video. So I finally have a cheap, or kind of crappy capture card, which means I can finally capture footage of stuff or use it for streaming, but the main takeaway for this video is I can actually get footage of what I'm talking about, which is amazing. So I'm gonna put up a warning, like, visually, for like epilepsy and stuff like that. Like, you probably just don't want to watch this video. For the most part, most of it's okay, but towards the end, especially when I get to like Digimon World 4 to show off some of the bad parts of the emulation, yeah, there's a bunch of flashing stuff, and I don't want anybody to have a bad time with that. So I'll put a big warning right now too, just audio wise. Like, don't watch this if you have epilepsy. It's not worth it or whatever. So, on that note, this is finally, I feel like, the first real video I'm really able to do. Instead of just, like, I've streamed stuff on my PC, on Twitch and stuff, and I have the streams on my channel, and I've done, like, audio-only videos, essentially. My last video, I had, like, some pictures in, but I'm actually going to have video in this, and that is super exciting. I just spent, like, maybe 3 hours capturing different video. I am like so stoked about this right now. I feel like I've leveled up my videos. This is super cool for me. And so this is a topic I'm super interested in. And what I was going to start with after this intro is like the history of the Xbox emulator on 360 itself. However, I kind of ran into a snag with that, being that I don't remember the name of the emulator, because I know there was some like internal name for it at Microsoft, and because I don't remember that, I'm trying to like look for it. I'm trying to research it, and I can't figure out the name of it again. But I'm going to talk about whatever knowledge I do have, regardless. So I was going to give like a little bit of a history lesson of it, but I was just going to do the best I can from my current knowledge. The one channel you should really check out if you somehow stumbled across this and you haven't seen this guy's video, Modern Vintage Gamer. He had a really good video on the original Xbox emulation on the 360, and I believe Mudahar talked about it a little bit during one video when he's trying to like play something on his 360. So yeah, definitely check that stuff out. Especially Modern Vintage Gamer had like actually good info about the development of this emulator, if I'm remembering correctly. So with that, I still have a lot of knowledge myself on this stuff, so I'm not going to be just like making stuff up or anything. I'm super into random tech stuff like this, and if there's anything I get wrong and you know that I'm wrong or whatever, just let me know, whatever. I'm not trying to speak with absolute authority on anything. So first thing I want to start with is like, yeah, this, as far as the hardware of the 360, like, in my opinion, it really should not be able to emulate the Xbox anywhere near as well as it does, because like none of this is real hardware or anything like that. It's not like, you know, playing a DS game in the 3DS or the original PS3 models. I believe that was real hardware before they went to a emulation solution. So it's not like that. The architecture is just completely different, and there's no original architecture even in there to begin with. So it is just pure emulation, because you got to actually convert the code, because now this is where I'm going to get a little sketchy. But it is, I want to say the original Xbox was like x86 code or something like that, and the 360 is PowerPC based. Well, wait. I think I have that backwards. I think the Xbox is PowerPC based, and 360 might be x86 based. Now, I could be completely wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure it's one of those two. Interchange them, whichever one I got mixed up. So, like, even from a pure baseline standpoint, they have nothing in common. So it is pure emulation, and I have a couple of guesses as to how this runs as good as it does. Now, I wish I could like actually just talk to somebody that worked on this. I have no power or no sway to be able to do something like that. However, if this video ends up ever getting traction and there's somebody that like was at Microsoft or can even talk about anything remote, like anything remotely surrounding this topic, I would love any other nugget of info about this, because I am like obsessed with this. It is super cool. Actually, you know, someone from Microsoft probably isn't going to like my video, because there's some fun extras in here that you can't normally do. So we'll just leave it at that. You'll know when it happens. However, still, it's very fascinating stuff to me. I think they did like an incredible job from a programming standpoint of view. Now, I am by no means like good at programming. But what I do understand is hardware and software very well, and limitations of service very well, in my opinion. I'm like, just because I'm like, I have a great interest in all this stuff. I'm not saying I'm the absolute authority on all this topic, but this stuff fascinates me and it's super cool. And I know I'm not the only one. Like, there's a lot of people, they probably just like, I just want to put my disc in, I just want to play my game. If it works, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But then there's people like me, and you watching this video, you and me both, that are like, yeah, but why and how, and oh my god, this is impressive, and oh, that's flickering really bad, why is it doing that? Those kind of thoughts where you can't just like take it at face value. You want to understand why it's doing what it's doing. And like, I have to say again, I am so excited that I have like real footage for this, and I was able to record a bunch of different footage of. Now, like, the games I chose, they're not all of them, like, definitely aren't like the most orthodox examples. Like, I could just show you like Halo 2 running on backwards compatibility, and I was going to, but it's like, I'm pretty sure most of the audience that was on the 360 probably already saw that, and that's well known to just work well. And like, so I could do that, or I could show examples that are a little more, that struggle a little more like niche examples of stuff that you might not have already seen. I feel like Halo was too safe of a bet, so I went in a little more of an oddball direction. Now, some of the footage I'm going to have to mute, because a lot of what I got, only because it is so interesting to talk about from a technical perspective, I got a lot of footage of different Tony Hawk games on the Xbox. I love Tony Hawk games. A big fan of them, playing them like my whole life. And as you know, there's music in them that is very, very, very copyrighted. So I'm either going to like just put my usual like campfire sounds in the background during that, or my own music or something, because luckily I at least have enough of a backlog of music that I could do that. But I see, because I also want like audio from the later games to show certain things, and I know that would be a bit of a clash, but I'm thinking I might do that regardless, because then while the video might clash a little bit, you're still getting the maximum amount of info both ways, because I want. There's certain examples where audio's not working right or something that I might want to like show, and not just have the whole video just be like audioless. But yeah, obviously I'm not gonna risk having the getting copyright strike from any of the Tony Hawk games. And I could have just muted the music, but I wasn't sure if I even want to just keep sound effects and that's it. Like, what I should have done is like gone through and put like, say, like I said, like my own music on the hard drive. And well, wait, no, I don't know how to do that now that I think about it. That I'm gonna have to look into, because I know like with the original Xbox you can put the music on the hard drive and like rip a CD, and then you can have that play through stuff like the Tony Hawk games and other games that supported that feature. But I don't know how I put it on the quote unquote internal hard drive of the quote unquote Xbox on the 360. I swear you can, and I feel like I even read like a guide somewhere on that, but I'll look into that later. But that was so the other thing that's cool about this, now I didn't get any footage of this because it wasn't really relevant to this video, but I have personally experienced like all this stuff on original hardware as well, so I can speak from that perspective. And really, there wouldn't be that much of a difference for what you're seeing, because my capture card wasn't great. Like, I can only do like 720p if I want to get like a stable frame rate out of the actual recording. And I know that sounds like, that sounds ridiculous, but originally it like OBS said it could do like 1080p, and it was advertised with 1080p, but I read like, hey, it doesn't do that well. And yeah, they're right, because it like drops a lot of frames in 1080, and it definitely is a cleaner image, obviously, a lot more pixels. But I'm not running anything that's 1080p to begin with this video, and it's more relevant rather, to have more accurate frame rate in the video to show when frame rates are dropping, as opposed to, oh, this is just the video doing it or whatever, and you still get an idea of how good it looks. So the reason, like, I don't think I need original Xbox footage right now, because you're not going to be getting that so much of a difference in video. Like, I could show you like, oh, it doesn't drop frames here, and then here's footage of it dropping frames on the 360, but I can just tell you that, and I'm just going to show you the footage regardless. It doesn't. If I know that it's running worse, you can go test it yourself. You're just going to have to trust me this video would be twice as long if I was making constant comparisons like that. It would be super cool, and maybe at some point I will make an extra long version of this if I feel like doing that. But that would also be like double the recording time, double the time in getting footage. And the whole getting footage thing is new for me, so I'm not trying not to bite off more than I can chew. Because I've never like edited a video. It's always, like I said, just like audio. So this is entirely new to me. So I don't know how I'm going to do this. Like, I don't know if I'm going to talk about specific examples and then try to slot in the foot. Yeah, that's exactly what we're going to be doing. So I'm just going to try to retroactively, when I edit this, put correct footage in the correct places, and when there's not incredibly relevant footage to what I'm talking about, I will just show footage of the different games running. So, one of the first things I want to talk about. So, there are some really cool advantages to doing this kind of stuff depending on how you're doing it. So, if you have a 360 that's slightly different than normal, if you catch my drift, then you can install your disc on the hard drive, and you can just straight up like rip your disc on the hard drive and stuff. So you're getting way faster loading than you would normally with the Xbox. And the Xbox honestly had pretty good loading to begin with its disc, as far as I remember. But also, if you have a nice Xbox, a nice original Xbox, catch my drift, you can also install your disc on the hard drive and rip them and stuff. And I've had plenty of experience with that too, and it does work like really well. So essentially getting that kind of level of parity. But like for my 360, I have a much larger hard drive than I do with my original Xbox. So the original Xbox I had was just a stock like 64 gigs or whatever, or 32 gigs. It was like, or was it even smaller than that? What was it? Was it like 8 gigs? I don't remember the hard drive. It was like really big for its time, but I don't remember the size of the hard drive off the top of my head. But like the hard drive of my 360 is like 700 some gigs. It's a really weird amount, and it is a hard drive, not a solid state or anything. But you wouldn't get much of an advantage of that, regardless with the 360. And I'm not sure if you even can install a solid state on a 360. I know you can a PS3, and again, it offers like minimal benefits, but it's the kind of dumb stuff that I would like to do eventually. I do want to put a solid state in my PS3 if I can do it with my 360. And then one day I will be putting a solid state in that, just to have it in there, just because then I know it's a solid state. So yeah, if you're running things off the hard drive, you're getting like phenomenal loading time, and running it from a disc isn't that bad either. Because I've also done that. I don't have all my footage is from the hard drive now though, but I've had experience playing things off the disc before with my original disc and stuff. So yeah, everything's super fast in that regard. I personally, this is like just cool for me. I like the 360 controller a lot. I like it more than the original Xbox controller is kind of clunky to me. I feel like 360 controllers are a little more unified, a little more uniform, and it's really, I don't know, there's something cool about playing an Xbox game with a 360 controller. But the biggest takeaway from this, the biggest like improvement would be the pure digital out from the HDMI port. Now, there are modifications you can do to the original Xbox to give it a digital out, as far as my understanding. I don't have one of those. I still have the original component cables. However, I do have like one of the HDMI solutions for the GameCube, and because its component nature was pure digital, it does look really nice. However, I believe with the original Xbox, the component solution is still analog, so it's not going to be quite as clear and crisp as pure digital out, unless you modify it, of course. So for me, as far as my setup is concerned, the pure digital out with the original Xbox games looks really nice. It's just to me, like the Xbox was far enough along in that generation where it wasn't even remotely trying to be for like CRTs anymore. Like yeah, like of course you can play on CRTs and it came with like AV cables, but that system is just completely benefits from having a digital display no matter what. Like with the PS2, you could definitely argue why you may want like the CRT instead. I still use like a RetroTink or my OSSC for that, but it's like there's so many games and stuff that are still in interlacing just there's no real great solutions yet. I believe the RetroTink 5X is actually a pretty good solution, but I don't have one of those. For most consumers, the interlacing is like a real problem. The GameCube, again, you're probably may be better off with the CRT for most consumers, but if you're using like Swiss and running every game in 480p and like using widescreen and stuff like that, and your digital out, like, yeah, I feel like it kind of starts falling like the Xbox territory where like I see no reason to have this on a CRT except for the Game Boy player, but this isn't about the GameCube. So yeah, the pure digital HDMI out to me is just like so cool. I don't know why, and I know there's gonna be somebody else out there who's gonna be like, yeah, I get it. There's something just really nifty about, you know, HDMI out with an Xbox game. I don't know what it is. It's super cool to me. So on that note, the first thing I'm going to be really discussing is probably like the Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. So that was the first thing I captured footage for today. So the reason why was such a cool thing to capture and talk about, and I'm sorry if I have to like reuse any footage. I do have like quite a lot of it, but I didn't realize how long I was going to be talking up until this point. But yeah, so with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4. So PS2, I don't even know if the PS2 version had 480p. I'm just not as familiar with that. The GameCube version does have 480p. They both have like anamorphic widescreen. I want to say that the Xbox version is not anamorphic. Now, I'd have to see side-by-side comparisons to see if we're actually getting any more rendering going on the side. But however, it is like, from my understanding, it is a pure 1280 by 720p image, which is kind of crazy for the original Xbox when you think about that generation. And I have played this stuff on the original Xbox, and it is so freaking impressive that it is running at 720p. It is hitting 60 FPS, and it looks great. It feels great. I don't know what kind of black magic they were doing over at Neversoft with the Xbox ports of these games, but because Pro Skater 3 was still 480p, Pro Skater 2X was still 480p, and then with Pro Skater 4, it's 720p, Underground 720p, Underground 2 720p, and then for American Wasteland, they went back to 480p. So, I don't know what happened there, but the three in-betweens right there, all being like I don't know about actual, but widescreen 720p is so insane for that generation. The fact they were still hitting good frame rates too. Now, I haven't played them on the original Xbox in a while, so I don't know if there was like any drops here and there or something, because on the 360 it is a different story, and that's what I'm going to get into. But the fact that, my point being, is those ran at 720p on on the original Xbox and like 1280 by 720. So the fact that when you're thinking about from a software emulation standpoint, I don't know why I said software emulation, but it is emulating software. From a pure emulation standpoint on the 360, that you can play something like Pro Skater 4 and it's emulating an already HD image from the original Xbox, and you're getting like something that like there's drops, and it's definitely like not the best way to play this, but it is to me really impressive that this is running as good as it is at all. Like, to me, this seems like some sort of black magic that shouldn't be working. The fact that like there is frame drops. Don't get me wrong. There's definitely some pretty chunky frames going on there, but it is just mind blowing to me that this works at all. Like, I can't stress again how much, and I'm sure if you know that original Xbox emulation, it even took a while for PCs to get good emulation of your Xbox, and that's like with way better hardware. You can put way better hardware in PCs and stuff. The fact that this works so well on the 360, which is, again, by today's standards, is not that good, like at all. It's really impressive engineering from like a software point of view. So I have a couple of guesses to this, and I feel like this would explain some of the later results that I'm going to be showing in the video, but I don't know. But I would guess, because this is an insider thing they have, there's no need to try to, and I know you're not allowed to do this, but there's no need to try to. You can't reverse engineer code. That's wrong. That's illegal. But as far as trying to replicate a function of something, there's no need for that when you're internally working at the company and it is your job to make this emulator. That they just have every piece of knowledge that they need to start with something like that, and they can just replicate functions as exactly as they might need to with the knowledge of how the original Xbox works. There's no headache as far as understanding any of the internal workings of any of that. So that's probably one of the biggest boosts. And I have no idea, and I really don't know, so I'm not saying I know this, but my guess is like this would be some sort of assembly coding. Now, again, like excuse my terminology, I'm not like the best with programming. I understand it from a basic point of view, but I'm way more of like understanding hardware and stuff like that. But I would guess that this is some sort of assembly code, but I could be completely wrong on that. So if you know something that I don't or whatever, again, like it's hard to find info about this emulator because like nobody really cares about this. Like yeah, there's like a small subsection of people, but nobody has like a ton of info out there that I could find. But assembly coding would be like the only thing that I could think that would explain like the insane results that this is getting. And again, I could be wrong because my second guess is probably something like that in tandem with skipping certain functions. So I'm sure you've seen this if you use emulators in computers and stuff. And no, there's nothing wrong with that, YouTube. If you back up your own games, only using stuff that you actually own and you're not distributing it to anybody, emulation is fine. Do whatever you want with it as long as you're using your own stuff. I'm all for that. So you can't take this out of context. Piracy is illegal. I am not condoning piracy. I'm saying back up your own games, use your own games, and don't distribute them. So if you ever like tinkered around with emulators and stuff, you could, especially if you had like a really crappy hardware when you were younger and stuff, and you're trying to use some of this stuff, you could do certain things to skip out in certain functions of the hardware to try to speed up the emulation. Like, I don't know if any of you were messing with, like, N64 emulation on, like, the PSP. I know it's a very specific example, but with how weak the PSP was, like, at the time, it was sweet. Don't get me wrong. But for emulating something like in N64, that you could skip certain stuff, like how fog renders, or skip certain CPU cycles, and all this kind of stuff, that would be, my other guess is trying to skip functions that may not be noticed in the majority of like greenlit compatible games. So any games that like were given the okay to actually play in the normal 360s, that probably whatever functions they're skipping, and this is just like I said, speculation, that whatever it was enough to again speed up the emulation, but also not noticeable enough for you as a consumer to notice whatever function was missing or whatever. Because the other thing that I've noticed, and again, speculation stuff, that I feel like emulators can tend to handle more states of failing than a console can, where like for the most part if something is going to crash on a console, there's like a 50-50 chance you might be able to get away with that, whatever is happening there, to not crash. An emulation might have more of an exception for certain crashes and stuff like that. And again, like this isn't a science, it's just something I've like kind of noticed myself in person, that this might crash on real hardware, but maybe it's because you have better hardware, stronger hardware, maybe you can access a little more of something, I don't know. So that could explain some things like that as well. So I'm assuming again that maybe some sort of assembly coding, they have complete knowledge of how the Xbox works, and probably skipping certain functions, which I feel like would explain certain behaviors in later games that I'm going to show. So that might explain how this is running so well, but I don't want that to like detract from how impressive this is. This is like absolutely insane and nutty that it works as well as it does. Like I cannot get over how functional this is. Like again, this is so good that your average consumer, I think, would pop in their Xbox game and like not even realize how much work really went into the backwards compatibility. Like to me, it's still impressive, like on the Xbox One and the One X and the Series X and all that. But they have like the 360 backwards compatibility, and that's like amazing. They have like the One X enhanced titles, like that's all super impressive. But I feel like the hardware was kind of there for it. While I feel like this was more an insane leap in like, oh my god, how are you even getting this code to run this way? I don't understand it. This is black magic. This is sorcery. To me, this has more of that vibe going on, and I love it. And to me, there's something like I like that I feel like there's going to be other people like this, where like, so we're running Pro Skater 4, and while I'm running it, I do everything by myself, if that wasn't clear, so let's see how this editing goes first time, where like you get more frame drops and stuff that aren't supposed to be there, but there's something that's kind of like exciting about that, and it gives me more to talk about. It's more interesting to look at. It's when things are so perfect, like say you're watching Digital Foundry, and they're talking about game's technical performance and everything just kind of works. Like, that's good. That's what you want. But then there's less to talk about. I like seeing things on lower end hardware. I like seeing things run into issues and stuff, or running at a lower resolution, maybe getting a frame hiccup here and there, because it's like, I don't know, it's more interesting, and especially when you go from an aspect of, like, say, either porting things to weaker hardware, running things on portable hardware, or in a case like this, like, emulating something you have no right to be emulating on a hardware level on the 360. It's like, it's more interesting when I can see the hiccups going on, and it gives it more of a, it gives me more to talk about. It gives me more to try to analyze and figure out what is its strengths, what are its weaknesses, like what's going on to make it buckle like this. So, I have some ideas. So, if we're looking at Pro Skater 4 footage, when there starts to be like, like, this is going to be like a no-brainer, but once more is getting rendered at once, like, in your viewpoint, I don't know how Pro Skater handles rendering things. I don't know if there's certain sections that aren't rendered until you get closer or something like that. I don't know if it works like that at all, but once there's, like, literally just more in your actual view, the frame rates aren't tanking a bunch. But then there's other, like, little bits here and there where I'm like, I don't understand why we're getting frame drops like this. But overall, and I actually did play quite a bit of Pro Skater 4 just on the 360. Enough to, like, unlock, like, most of the levels and stuff. That, like, the frame drops can be, like, a little crusty sometimes, but it wasn't bad enough to the point where, like, I couldn't play it. It was a very cool experience to, like, play this on the 360 like this. However, not all examples are this amazing. So, next thing I'm going to be showing a bit is a bit of Pro Skater 2X, which was the fascinating and overall really good port of Pro Skater 2 to the Xbox by Treyarch, actually. But I'm not here so much to talk about the game itself. I like, for as amazing as a port as it is, graphically, frame rate wise, resolution, 480p, 60 compared to the other. Well, actually, Pro Skater 2 on the Dreamcast, I believe, was 480, 30, never mind. And still nowhere near as detailed or anything. There's something about the physics in this game that isn't right. Like, I don't know what happened, and I don't know if it's just me, but compared to playing this, like, say, like, on the N64 or PS1, like, something's wrong, and I don't know what it is, but it's, like, too floaty. And that's not the point of this. I just wanted to have that little, like, nitpick in there. But as far as, like, from a technical point of view, it's a really impressive... Port's, like, such a strong work, because it's, like, they did a lot of work in it, a lot of extra detail, a lot of new stages and stuff. Like, they're not good. None of them are. But there's still new stages and stuff. So this is where things start making less sense. So I remember, like, when I first had this 360 extra coolified, I had, like, my brother and some friends over, and we were playing, like, the 4-player split screen that was in 2X. Because that's really cool. I got some wired controllers. I love the original 360 wired controllers. They are precious to me. And, we're all playing it and stuff. HDMI out, it's so nice running through my upscaling. Frame rate is bad. Now, like, it's not terrible. But there's, like, hitching going on, and it's almost like bad frame pacing. And then you get these little drops, and what's really bad about them is that it kind of messes with the controls pretty roughly, and where you get these, like, random judders, and you can't, like, get an input in, and, if you play Tony Hawk, that's not good. However, as an experience just to screw around with or whatever, it is really cool, and it doesn't really make sense because it's not any better in single player. So here's what makes this so confusing to me, is the fact that we're running at a lower resolution, and it's not even, like, a widescreen resolution as far as how much it's rendering pixel-wise and stuff. And it's just, like, it runs kind of on par and sometimes, like, worse in a way than Pro Skater 4. Its overall frame rate is better, but, like, I want to say it's frame pacing issues. This is what it feels like, and it feels like I'm getting frames at the wrong time, and then my inputs aren't... I'm getting drops in frames where I can even input stuff, and it ends up feeling a lot worse. Like, it's a shame, because, like, when it works great, and it looks great like this, and for the 4 players and stuff, it's so much easier for me, and I'm sure for other people. Just hook that thing up with an HDMI, especially if you have just, like, wireless controllers. Then you're not untangling things, you're not dealing with all these wires, you're just getting nice, clean, crisp digital image, you're doing 4-player split-screen Tony Hawk. But unfortunately, the reality of it isn't always that great. However, again, not taking it too seriously and just having fun. You just want to check it out. It's still pretty cool, but it is puzzling. It is puzzling that in some scenarios it's worse than Pro Skater 4, which is pushing out a lot more pixels. I would say it's not as graphically good. I feel like Treyarch kind of kicked a lot of butt with like the detail and stuff in Pro Skater 2. But still, like there's only so much that means when you compare it to a 1280 by 720 image compared to the 640 by 480. Like the amount of pixels it's pushing out is so much more in Pro Skater 4, and it's overall a better experience, which makes no sense. But that's why this video is fun to me, and it's probably hopefully fun to you as well. So overall, it's okay, but unfortunately, it's not going to be that much more okay in the long run. Did you like that structure of that sentence? That very cool, epic English is my first language kind of sentence? I have no excuse. I am American. English is my first language. I don't know what happened there. So, you know what? This is a good segue. This is a good segue. I hate doing this kind of stuff. This was a lot of work. This is a lot of work. I'm not done with it. When you're watching this video, I'm in the middle of this right now. You don't even realize that. No, you probably do. I'm still in the middle of doing this. This is taking me time. This is a super fun project for me. But if you're enjoying this and you want to see more stuff like this, now that I got my sweet 720p, maybe sometimes 60 FPS capture card, I'm going to be doing more stuff like this. So, like this video, comment on it, subscribe to the human talking to you right now. I hate doing this stuff. I hope you understand that I hate shilling for myself. I hate to do it, but maybe it helps. I've heard people say that it helps, but I don't like it. I feel scummy doing it. But, you know, if you're enjoying this content, feedback is nice. You know, I'm not going to pretend like, oh, that I don't want people watching my video. I'm just doing it for me. Like, 95% of this is for me and for my crazy interest like this. But obviously, if you put a lot of work into some sort of artistic project, whether it's music, your art, videos, whatever, of course you want people to see it. You want people to enjoy the work you've made or whatever, you know. So, with that out of the way, I want to talk about Underground 2. Because I got footage of this too. And this is going to be so fun because I just cannot put audio of this like anywhere without like muting the music. So, Underground 2, something went wrong. Very wrong. So, I didn't get footage of Underground 1 because there really wasn't a point. It runs about as good as Pro Skater 4 and it's still 1280 by 720p. And I know there are people that absolutely love Underground and stuff. So, if you do and you have the means, totally run this on your 360, back up your disc and stuff. Because it is really cool. It is really cool. It runs pretty okay, and it looks great and stuff, and you get that pure digital 720p out. Especially if you don't have like component cables for your Xbox or something. Like, this is amazing. This is really cool. So, it runs, like I said, about as well as Pro Skater 4, which, like, isn't amazing, but it's enough for you to play the game. So, on paper, Underground 2 is a lot of the same. Now, I don't know if this is still the same sort of renderware from, like, Pro Skater 3 and stuff. I don't know. I really, honestly don't know what kind of engine they're using for this stuff. But it's very similar in technical makeup to Underground 2. Wow. Yes, believe it or not, Underground 2 is similar to Underground 2. That is not what I meant. I meant it's similar to Underground, and I'm keeping that in because haha funny. So it's very technically similar to Underground. And some stylistic choices are slightly different, a little more cartoony, however, a little more detailed. Some of the models actually have a little more 3D elements to them rather than just being like pasted on there and stuff like that. But that's more so even from like Pro Skater 4 to Underground or whatever. However, on the original Xbox, I played a lot of Underground 2 on the original Xbox through like component and stuff. So you get that sweet 720p. The frame rate was like really good, and something is wrong with playing it through this emulator. So I've got footage here. It is horrific. It is like you cannot play this game like at all. I when I booted this up for the first time, I don't have footage of this, but like I'm like playing the story mode on like the highest difficulty or whatever, trying to get like the stats up and stuff. And you know you need stuff like a 1,000,000 point combo and stuff like that, which like normally like no problem, whatever. But it's like combining the problems from Pro Skater 2, where it's like I'm getting these weird hitches and then dropping my inputs on top of like heavy frame rate drops. And again, it's not like and I think this is probably, again, like an intentional setup behind the scenes, but it's frame skipping, not like slowing down. It is just skipping frames, and it's really, really bad in this game, and it gets really choppy and really slow, and this is so cool to me. It is so messed up. See, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. This is just pure jank. This is purely messed up. This is unplayable. But oh my god, it is a spectacle to look at. It is so bad. Like, I don't know what's going on here. Now, I've heard, but I didn't test this out myself, but I heard if you like run your 360 in 480p or under, or say you're running like 480i through composite cables or whatever, that the game will only run in like 480 internally, and that it like runs better like this. But test that for yourself if you want. I wasn't going to bother going through all that trouble, because I mostly am talking about if you're using this in a very normalized fashion and just still trying to do the 720p and stuff, because this is where the meat of it's at. So, if you end up testing that yourself, just like let me know how it works, especially if you can just like record footage on your phone or something. Maybe I'll test it out myself, but I'm not so down in the rabbit hole of Underground 2 right now that I need good frame rate on my 360. Like, I'll play it like on my GameCube or something. So yeah, the frame rate's really bad. The footage I got is amazing. I went to like Barcelona or whatever, and the one fountain, and you'll see this in the footage. The one fountain, it's like spraying out water, and it tanks the frame rate. It is so bad. And then when you use the little, like, it's not an elevator, but the little teleport thing that puts you like on top of the stage, and you can see like a lot of it from a higher point of view. It chugs so bad. And here's what's interesting is, I'm sure this is somewhat telling of whatever program is going on here, but so it starts taking the frame rate really bad where you're like seeing a lot of stuff, like I said, like it's rendering a lot of stuff, whatever it's doing. And then even when you go back down to like an area where it wasn't running as bad before, it's still chugging for like a couple seconds. Like, it's like almost like playing catch up with itself. Like something is deeply wrong with Underground 2 and the 360, and it is a beautiful mess. This is the kind of stuff I live for. This is horrific. You know what I need to do? And you need to do this too, human, is that you need to have some people over, and you're gonna do like, trick attack and stuff, but you're gonna do it playing on the 360 with a horrible frame rate, and just see who can do the better job with this. It's like, who can work around the jank enough to still be a pro skater, or still be underground. Yeah. So it's horrible. The footage is amazing. It's just behold how bad this is. So that's gonna be the end of my Tony Hawk sections, but I got other stuff. I want to talk about. And I'm talking so long, I realized I don't have enough footage for any of this. Wow. I thought I had way too much footage. I'm going to be repeating footage. I'm very sorry about that. I still think it'll be a great video, though. I didn't realize how long I was going to be talking about this stuff. I didn't realize how passionate I was about OG Xbox emulation on the 360. So we're going to move on to something that works a little better before we get into the real scum. So that's kind of going to be my like hook. Wow, my voice just had like a real life frame pacing issue. Wow. So before I get into the real scum later, because that's how I'm going to hook you and keep you hooked. Like, you're not leaving this video until you're done seeing all the spectacle of 2 frames per second. So I did a little bit of Forza, Motorsport. Now, this game is beautiful on the Xbox. It is a real sight to behold, in my opinion. It's so obviously you have higher resolution games like the Tony Hawk game, and this is still 480p. This is 30 FPS, but it is a very richly detailed game. Like, the car models are really good. The tracks look really good. It's got a good physics engine underneath. It's a really good first attempt at like a simulation game, and it's a good showcase for the emulation on the 360 because it runs really good. And this is the point where it's like almost boring, but I wanted to make sure I still got some like good examples in here, because again, this shows that whatever this is and whatever is making it run the way it is, and I'm making it sound like it's some sort of mythical creature, but I just mean, like, as far as the emulation is concerned, this is like some top tier stuff for the level of hardware they were working with. You get examples like Forza or like I said, Halo 2. Not that I have footage of that or anything, where it just runs really good. And like overall, if you're just talking about, like I said, the digital out and stuff, it looks better than the original Xbox. It's really good. It plays really good. I feel like the 360 controller is better for it in this case. Even though I'm not really talking about like control, I'm more so talking about the emulation itself. Still, it's a really cool experience. It's very solid. I didn't notice like any issues with it. Now, I didn't play it like a whole lot or anything, but I did a couple of races and stuff, and it's really good. It runs super good. It looks great, and maybe that'll help me cut down my video runtime a little bit because it's just good. It's just good. It's boring. It's good. So I'm gonna move on to the next game. Did you see that smooth segue? I am not at all a noob at this. I am learning. Do people even use that phrase anymore? Honestly, it doesn't matter. I don't care. Now we're gonna talk about Jet Set Radio. So this is the prime example of why on earth is this not backwards compatibility on the Series X. I would like, I don't know, give up both my kidneys if I could play this on the Series X with like HDR and 4K and stuff. Please. Humor. So this is again an example like Forza where there's nothing much for me to say because it's completely functional and it just works very well. I feel like the cell shading really is well complemented by that pure digital out. It just looks amazing. It runs good. There's not anywhere like input lag, which I am going to talk about later for some of these games. And no frame pacing, no frame skipping, no frame drops. It all works very well. The only thing I think I noticed, I'd have to comb through the footage again, is I feel like some of the shadows were flickering in the intro when I was trying to watch it. And again, I'm not doing like full playthroughs of each of these games to very like minutely pick out specific details in certain areas. Like that's well outside the scope of what I can do by myself. However, from the little bit I played, again, this is boring because there's nothing I can really add to this because, yeah, maybe a little bit of shadow flickering, but this just works. And I believe this is official backwards compatibility as well. And this might be the easiest way for a lot of people to play Jet Set Radio feature. So, like, if you just have a 360 laying around, even just a normal one, I believe you could just pop this bad boy in and it's just going to work. So, if you haven't played this game, if you want to play this game, play Jet Set Radio first. But you know, it doesn't really matter. Just play Jet Set Radio feature. It works really well in here. This is a really good way to experience this game, and that's kind of the gist of it. This is where I still want examples, like I said, of good games to show how well this thing can run. But again, there's nothing for me to say when it's working perfectly as designed. That's not to take away from how impressive it is, though. Again, I want to stress that when it's working so perfectly, it is incredibly impressive. It's just boring, and I'm sure that's understandable. And like I said, I have plenty of examples here I'm going to start showing where you can start seeing what it's starting to buckle under, what's not working correctly, maybe see what functions it's skimping out on and stuff. So I got two more kind of good ones to show you, and I don't know how I'm going to sprinkle it in this video, like I said, because I thought I captured enough footage, but I don't think I did. So here's two examples that I think are pretty good. One's way more impressive than the other, if you ask me. But you can at least see some slight issues happening, at least with the second example I'm going to give you. So the first one I want to give is the Xbox port of Soul Calibur 2. So I don't know if anybody is like, well, I know there's going to be some people, but aware of the fact that this was actually 720p on the original Xbox. Now it is a 4x3 720p. I don't know what number that is off the top of my head because obviously it's not 1280 anymore. But I don't think it's not 640 anymore either. I don't believe it's like the 4x3 equivalent of 720p. So you don't get like the widescreen of the GameCube version, and the PS2 version I believe had that as well, and obviously we have the HD version. But in some ways, this is an interesting way to experience the game because the HD version, while being widescreen and still 720p, but also think about this. This was 720p already, just 4x3 720p. But it was on the original Xbox. It doesn't have that glossy sheen all the models got, like in the HD version, which I'm not huge on. I still think it's the best version to play, but I'm not really a fan of how like shiny everything looks in the HD version. So again, this is another game. While it's not 1280 by 720, it's still pushing out 720p, and this is like shockingly good again on the 360. Like, it is really impressive. I even like when I recorded the footage, I'm like, I want to make sure I'm like really getting the full experience, because if any fighting game is dropping frames, I'm done. You know, like you can't play like that. So I hooked up my stick and actually played through the arcade round or whatever, and it's like very functional. There's one stage, I forgot which one, you'll probably see it in the video, where like I think it was like that library looking stage where it started dropping frames a little bit, which like wasn't good. But that was the only time I noticed that. And other than that, like the input was very fast and snappy. I didn't feel like there was much input lag going on or anything. I felt like I could just play the game. But and again, it's 720p, which it's emulating 720p essentially, 4x3 720p, which is so freaking impressive to me. It is so cool. But you'll kind of notice, now I'm not saying this capture card I got is good or anything. It's not. It's a $30 bottom of the barrel capture card just to kind of test the waters, you know, see if I like this. So contrast might be a little blown out and stuff like that, but something is wrong with the contrast in this game just slightly. Like, now you might be able to mitigate this through adjusting your TV and stuff like that, but it is like there's too much contrast going on. It's a little too much. It's like there's like a giant like filter across the image. And again, it wasn't like super bad, and I feel like you could mitigate it, but it was noticeable, and even like because especially like on the darker screens, it's like just dark gray, like something is slightly off of it. But other than that, from a pure like technical show point, it is very, very impressive, and it's snappy, and it's fast at responding and stuff. Besides the one stage, I didn't get any drops or whatever. If you were just doing some matches with your friends and stuff, just avoid the library stage, and you're good to go. It's 720p. It looks great. It looks great with that digital out, especially. It's nice and like clear. You can really see the detail and everything. Like this game is very detailed, and it's already in HD. So this is almost, to me, maybe even more impressive than like Pro Skater 4 and stuff, because Pro Skater 4 is still 1280 by 720p, which is really impressive. However, it's definitely not the most detailed game, but this is like running really good besides the one stage, and it's very detailed, and that's more of a testament to Soul Calibur 2 itself, but it is very impressive from an emulation standpoint how good it's doing with this source content. However, I'm going to show a little bit, you know, segue, Samurai Warriors 1, because I remember actually just popping this bad boy into my 360, like back when I didn't have any fun alterations to it, and like, so I don't know if this was my disc, and I didn't play super far or anything. I was just mostly getting footage of how it's running. You can start noticing, and this is something you probably would notice if you ever messed around with like different emulator settings for different emulators, that something's wrong with the text. It's like overly filtered, and there's some garbo in there. There's some garbage going on with the text where like there's a little bit on the bottom that like isn't right, and there's just like some extraness going on, but like the game plays fine and it looks great and stuff, and I don't think there's any additional frame rate drops that aren't already there, but again, I'm not sure. I actually don't think I've ever played this on original Xbox, just the 360. Now, I remember on disc, at least, I don't know if this was just the disc I got at the time, but you could beat like a couple people's stories, and then once you unlocked like Nobunaga or something, or no, maybe it wasn't that cut and dry, maybe it was like somebody else, the game would just stop loading the ending cutscenes after you finished a character's story mode, so you couldn't keep progressing because you couldn't save after that, so you couldn't unlock anything more. Now, like I said, I don't know if that was my disc, or if this is a problem with the emulator, but there is a bit of stankiness going on with the text if you see. So there could be something slightly wrong in the back end of it, but like, you know, your mileage may vary. Try it, see if it's running okay. Not running okay, it runs fine, but see if you can like finish stages and stuff. So like it kind of works, but there might be that all important I might not be able to finish the game kind of problem. So that's something you might want to keep in the back of your head. But this is a really good example to show, you know, see how the text is getting kind of messed up and stuff. So I played some 2D fighting games, and you can start seeing that the emulator is really starting to buckle under certain like sprites and how certain 2D elements are displayed. So for the rest of this video, it hasn't been too bad up to this point, but huge warning if you have any photosensitivity issues. This is going to wreck you, and I do not want you to see any of that, because this is when things start getting really bad. So, I got some really good examples of, okay, this is where the emulator cannot handle whatever is going on. It was not fine-tuned for this. So, first up, I got some Samurai Shodown 5. Alright, the Xbox port is very interesting. It was the only, like, at the time the only like officially English translated version of 5 that had the story content, because 5 did have like story stuff that was like cut out in like the Neo Geo release of the American release? Question mark? I know I said release a lot there. So the original Xbox port is actually very interesting. It's got like arranged music and stuff that sounds pretty sweet. I'm still like I prefer the Neo Geo sound font, I should say specifically. I'm a huge fan of that, but the original soundtrack is a really cool option and stuff. But play this on the Xbox. Do not touch this on the 360. So you can start seeing it's like that weird problem where, and I know this isn't what it's doing because it's running games like a original resolution, but it's got that problem where it's like when you see some bad internal upscaling like running at higher resolution of the sprites, we start getting like different blocks of it, and you get blocky artifacts and stuff where it's like this is horrific. So you start getting that problem bad. The health bars are in like illegible. You cannot understand how much health you have. The meter, I don't know what's going on with it. And this is something else I started to notice where like the inputs are like really messed up, where like I'm like just doing like quarter circles and stuff and they're not coming out. And like I said, I wanted to give this a fair shake. I was using my stick at this point to make sure everything was okay. And yeah, no, like I couldn't get off half the moves I was trying to do. It looks horrifically bad. There was a lot of messed up stuff going on. And then moved over, and I've already seen this one, but I have to show you the audience. So I have some KOF Neo Wave on there. That's not even that good of a KOF game to begin with. It's a weird one. I don't know why you just want to play 2002 UM, but it's again, I kind of like some strange stuff like that, where like there's no reason to go back and play this one. So if anything, that's all the more reason to show it off. So this game has 3D backgrounds, unlike Samurai Shodown 5, and it does not know what to do with those at all. So in the original game, and like you can get this on the Series X actually, and it runs in like 4K and 60. The sprites are super filtered, and I don't really like that look on the Series X. I mean, and you can see like the same almost like smoothing that's trying to go on with this, where it's like it's just like not right. And so it's got 3D backgrounds that kind of turn with the match and stuff like that. And so it's a bit of a 3D plane in the background where it does kind of swivel back and forth. It's not just like a 2D plane background-wise where you're just going back and forth with the camera. It does kind of swivel a little bit. And so whatever rotating mechanism, the skyboxes, the sprites in the background, none of it is working correctly, and it made it very hard to understand where you even were. Like, it's just, everything was just not working right, because the game, like, obviously corrects certain things on the backgrounds and moves and stuff, and because the background's not moving or anything properly, like, everything just seems all skatey and weird and floaty. And again, like the Sam Show 5 problem, where like my inputs like aren't right. I felt like I was playing like underwater. Like something was very wrong with it. And it's not like it was dropping frames, but like I would just do things and nothing would happen. And it's like, okay, but I didn't see the game dropping frames, so I don't know what's going on with that. This is a prime showcase of it cannot handle 2D elements well. It cannot handle 2D fighting as very well. Now, it doesn't say anything in and of itself, because clearly it's got whatever specific issues going on with how these games are running, engine-wise, coding-wise, whatever, sprite work. That it's not. This is its weakness. It cannot handle this. So we're nearing the end of the video now. I got 2 more short clips I'm going to show you, and I'm not going to put these in the middle of the video because I'm not going to jump scare anyone. But I got Castlevania Curse of Darkness, I believe, like the game that had Hector in it. And that at first was like okay, and there's some scumminess in the top and bottom of the screen where it looked like it was like blurred, like something wasn't going right with that. But I'm like, you could play this. Like I wouldn't. That would bother me way too much. But like you could play this, except then like you can see in the footage. I'm like, okay, let me go like to the save room, and like collision doesn't work right, and I went straight through the floor. So this game is going straight to the no-no pile that you cannot play this probably at all. I would not chance that at all. So that was really funny. I didn't see that happening. I thought this game was going to be okay. So, haha, funny, moment, humor, click the like button, whatever. So the last example I have is because I asked my brother, going to be like, hey, you want to play some Digimon World 4? And he's like, yeah. So I'm like, I'll put that on my 360. I'm I'm not gonna be doing that. I think I'll put up the GameCube version instead. So the main menu is really flashy, very bad. It's like seizure inducing, so that's very not good. All the text and like 2D elements have like this yellow stain over it. It's amazing. It makes it just look like gross, like something's wrong with it. And then you get in game and it's like fine, and it's like running fine, and the 3D elements look great and stuff like that. There's no music. I don't know why. There's no music. I load another area. I save the game, but I don't trust this. I really don't. I don't know how far you can get in this before something doesn't work right. The music not playing to me is a telltale sign that something is not loading right. But that could just be like baseless speculation. But to me, this was one of the most fun examples of, okay, something is very, very wrong here. This, along with Curse of Darkness, are good examples of, like, probably don't touch this ever, and then you could really see in certain ways how the emulator is just breaking down. I really, really like the fact that whatever coding issue is going on here, that it messed with collision detection in Curse of Darkness. That's very strange to me. It's very interesting. And that kind of goes back to my theory that maybe they're doing certain like tricks to like skip certain calculations that weren't used by like the officially compatible games and stuff. And whatever calculation that might have been being used for the Curse of Darkness port, and that's why collision wasn't working properly or whatever. It's very fascinating. I have a feeling the Digimon World 4 thing, that might be like a shader issue in the main menu. And as far as things being yellowed, I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine. Some sort of... Because maybe there is some sort of like sprite filtering they try to do. But I'm not entirely sure on that. But it's yellow, not necessarily this filter, but it's yellow. So like something is a little bizarre there. So that's kind of where we're gonna segue into the end here. So this has been, to me, a really cool like deep dive on some more oddball examples of the original Xbox emulation on 360. And yeah, I wanted to get more info out for the actual emulator stuff, but you can see yourself, it is very hard to find any info about this online. I understand why they kind of keep their cards close to the chest, so to speak, for this kind of development stuff. But to me, it would be really cool to have more info on how this is actually working and stuff. But like, from a business point of view, like, why would they? There's like no benefit for them doing this. This is just something super fascinating to me. That, again, like, if you get it, you get it. You're probably just as interested in this as I am. You know, if you've gotten this far, like, there's no way you didn't want to see all the cool little examples I had. And, you know, go try this for yourself. Try some random stuff out. Like, try stuff that's not officially like compatible and stuff, and just see what kind of nonsense is going on with this. Yeah, but at the end of the day, this is a very, very impressive emulator, and it's crazy what they could do with, you know, not that the 360 was like weak when it came out, but it was not strong enough to be doing this, and it is so incredible that it did this well at all. And maybe at some point, it's a little more of a pain, but maybe I could do the same thing, but for like the PS3 and its PS2 emulation. I have no access to PS3s with like the original PS2 hardware components in there, but where's the fun in that anyways? So maybe at some point I can go through like the PS2 emulation and the PS3 and see some fun results. Overall, that tends to work better with a more wide variety of things as far as compatibility. However, the speed is nowhere near as good as far as the Xbox emulation of the 360, as far as how, if you're actually getting a good frame rate out of things. So my guess is maybe they were skipping out on most features of the PS2, and in return you get a more compatible, more realistic shell of a PS2 software-wise, but at the downside of this isn't running super well anymore. You know, it's a trade-off both ways. The 360 stuff to me is just slightly more impressive, if only because of how powerful the Xbox was compared to the PS2. And if you knew how to code properly for the PS3 was more powerful than the 360. If you knew what you were doing with the cell processors and stuff, which Sony obviously did know what they were doing with those. So it's slightly less impressive, but it's more compatible, and for the end user, it makes more sense. But the Xbox emulation of the 360 is just even more crazy and just absolutely insane and interesting to me. So I hope you enjoyed all the examples I have. Me trying to deep dive into this a little bit. I know this is kind of unorthodox because I can't really research this. This is just me like, here's some examples that would stress out the hardware. Here's what we're getting out of it, and here's kind of my speculation as to why this is happening. So this has been super fun to me. I'm so excited to do like a real video with like video footage and stuff. Like I said, I thought I had enough footage for this, but I'm probably going to be looping some things. It's whatever. You live and you learn. I still think this is going to be a great video. And on that note, I hope you enjoyed it. This has been me, Human. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I am out.